Hey, I'm Chris King from YFC Australia. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about an affection-based obedience. A little bit of my story. I was raised in the Christian church and I grew up, and I came across a verse that got me to make a decision. This verse was to go out and to make disciples, to go out and preach the gospel, to actually tell people about my faith and about Jesus. And at that time, I just found it to be an overwhelming command that I wasn't doing. So I decided in that moment, He commanded me to do it, so I must do it. It was obedience. So I did it. I went out and I preached the gospel. I handed out tracts and I told them the gospel. But each time, and for about 2 years, this went on and on and on, of me preaching the gospel, but I did it with a base of fear. I didn't want to preach the gospel, but I found I had to be obedient to what He said. When I was driving the car this one day, I was not thinking about evangelism. I was not thinking about sharing my faith at all. God spoke to me and He showed me a picture. This picture was of a big pirate ship. And there was 2 captains. There was one captain that was walking the plank. There was one captain that was steering the ship. The captain that was walking the plank was the captain of love. And the captain that was steering the ship was the captain of fear. And I was positioned with my sword drawn, and I was making the captain of love walk the plank. God said to me in this vision, Chris, it's your religious attempts to cast out fear that is actually committing mutiny against love. I was deeply impacted by this vision, and I realized my obedience without a love, without a liberation, actually was causing me to cast love out. But then He said after that, He said, Chris, perfect love casts out fear. But love will not go through me. Love is a gentleman. So with the conviction in my heart, I realized I needed change. Something has to change. That love actually is the captain that will cast out fear, but it won't go through me. So the next days and the next weeks, I was processing, what type of love do I need to cast out fear? So I thought maybe it's my love for the lost. Maybe if I just loved them, I wouldn't be fearful of them. And so I tried that, and I found that I genuinely loved people, but I still had fear. And maybe some of you have experienced that as well. And then I was like, oh no, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's my love for God. Because if I truly love God, well then I'll be free from everything else, right? I went about, same thing. This is years going by. I found there's something that I'm missing. When I came to understand, and this is what we now teach at the Jesus School in Australia, is that it's actually God's love for us that's our liberation. And it's God's love for them, which is our motivation. That we need to come and overflow from the place of fulfillment. I found out that it was God's love for me that cast out fear. That I was only meant to operate and overflow from the place of fulfillment. So when we go about preaching the gospel, fulfilling God's commands, He wants us to be an affection-based and filled believer that then expresses the fullness that we have experienced firsthand. That it's not obedience for the sake of obedience. That would be robotic. But He wants us to be sons and daughters who know the Father and who have love in our hearts that overflows and compels us, makes us have to preach the gospel. It's a coping mechanism for a Christian to preach the gospel. It's from the place of fulfillment we love others. So Practically, this is when we feel fear, if we feel fear or if other people that we're shepherding feel fear, our encouragement to them is to, in that time of fear, receive from the Father His great love. His love that's perfect. His love that casts out fear. Then from the place of fullness, we can truly illustrate Christ's love and Christ's freedom. So when we preach the gospel, it's a gospel of freedom. You don't have to deal with fear for the rest of your life. It's not something that has to keep being suppressed or pushed through. I hear the statement, you have to step outside of your comfort zone because it's something new. But I've read in the Bible that the Holy Spirit is my comforter. And in Him we live and move and have our being. We are not meant to do something outside of our comfort zone. Rather, allow Him to speak to us, fill us with grace, fill us with the love to overflow in that fashion, in that way, evangelism, teaching, pastoring. Allow Him to extend our comfort zone, that we may walk in freedom like He paid for. So this is just a bit of teaching on how to live from an affection-based obedience. This is my story.